again for sourcing the mince pies, which are vegan. So those who are vegetarian, perfectly happy to eat them. So thank you, Jen. Right. Thank you. To just want to take this opportunity to thank all councillors here for the work they've done during 2023. There's been an awful lot has happened. We have done a lot of work, so and it's, I think, greatly appreciated. So thank you all, everybody, for the work that you've done during this year. There will be more to come, of course, in 2024. And thank you too to the Clark team as well, who've I think been magnificent in supporting us. I mean, it was difficult. There were so many new councillors, and you know, the transition period always can be quite demanding. So thank you to the Clark team, who I think have been magnificent, and I feel we are lucky to have you. So right. So Jason is here to talk to item 106, which is document R in your pack. So rather than speaking now in the public session, I'll ask to suspend standing orders so that Jason can speak. But I will bring that's pretty well towards the end of the agenda, so I will bring that item forward after we've looked at the committee minutes. Okay, right, so let's get going. So, procedural matters, recording of the public meeting. The meeting is being recorded for broadcast on the Parish Council YouTube. Does anybody wish to make a further recording? No. Items to be heard in private session? Anybody? The possibility one might have been, but it's not. So no items to be heard in private session. Apologies and reasons for absence. Do you want to report, Ms. Jen?
Yeah, so as per the agenda, Councillor Kath Fernandez and Councillor Donald Fur still have their dispensations in place. Councillor Isaac Barnett and Councillor Tricia Stewart, and I emailed people and printed that out for people that have their correspondence in hard copy, so everyone should have seen the reasons for those, and I hope that you are now ready to consider their apologies and reasons for absence.
And we willing to accept the reasons for absence. Thank you, thank you very much. Item 88, receipt of written declaration of pecuniary and other interests. Again, Clark to report.
Yes, so I emailed out the revised written declaration of pecuniary interest for Councillor Collins, and also for the pecuniary and other interests of officers, which is the first time we are doing this. And just to confirm what I put in the email, obviously Councillor Collins' DPI will be posted to the HVPC website, but the ones for officers won't be. That's just for your information.
We're happy to receive those declarations. Yep. Thank you. I'd just like to say I think the initiative of having the Clark team record their interest is a really positive move as well. So yes, congratulations and thanks, because they didn't have to do it. So thank you all for that. Right, declarations of interest in agenda items. And just possibly to say that at item 97 we have the Clark's paper on declarations of interest. So does anybody, apart from me that is, does anybody have any declaration of interest? No. Well, I have to declare an interest, which is in item 109, which is the 80th anniversary of D-Day commemoration, and it's because I'm the treasurer of Friends of Cliff Wreck, who will be oh, I have already started planning to do something. And yes, Councillor Dixon.
Yeah, I suppose I should probably declare an interest as the chair and Friends of Cliff Wreck as well.
Thank you. Okay.
I've got an interest.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, so ahead of item 232497, just a reminder to all of us that primarily for each councillor to declare is necessary. And in that line, in terms of item 232495, as an officer, can I declare an interest in the item about the council budget 2024-25, where reference is made to raising the rental charges for garages. I did mention this at the F&M meeting a little bit earlier this month. I want to declare that my husband Paul McIntosh is on the waiting list for a garage on Dover Lane, Holme.
I suspect we'll be hearing this for a few years.
You look retired by the time you get
You probably have 5 cars by the time you get one.
He sold his motorbike in a few years because, you know, they we won't need it anymore. So before the next full council meeting, I will update my DPI accordingly to include that.
Have you actually gone up the list, or are you still in the same position?
I have no dealings with it, so Rich would have to tell you.
Has she gone up the list, Rich? Someone died in her valley.
He's number 1 on the list.
Oh, right.
Number 1 on the list is 1. There's only 1 on the list.
One on one.
Thank you. Right, so let's move on to item 90, which is minutes of council meetings. So I ask councillors to approve the draft minutes of the full council meeting on the 9th of October. Those in favour approving minutes? Thank you. Right, and then further action or actions arising from those minutes. So Clark has something to report on ongoing matters. Thank you.
Yes, can I report on item 232466, Sands Recreation? Service provision on the 6th of November, deferred consideration of recommendations for the use of the 15,000 to its meeting on the 19th of February 2024. And can I also include, as a matter arising from item 232471, the laying of wreaths for remembrance. Can I just thank all councillors who represented the council and carried out the wreath laying and were really good about coming in and collecting wreaths and so forth. Thank you very much for your help with that.
Thank you. Right. So we now move on to approve to the minutes of standing committee meetings. So the first one is the Finance and Management Committee meeting held on the 25th of September. And I think Councillor Greaves was the chair at that meeting, acting.
Yeah, I'm happy to move it.
Thank you.
That's a great
Right. All those in favour of accepting the minutes? Thank you. And then the minutes of the Planning Committee meeting on the 16th of October. Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, we're just noting these, aren't we?
We are just noting these. Yeah. Copy? Got them? Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Right. And then to approve the Climate Action Communication Engagement Committee meeting on the 23rd of October.
Yeah.
No favour of approving those minutes? Thank you. And then the minutes of the Service Provision Committee held on the 6th of November. Councillor Bailey?
Yeah, I propose we approve.
Approves.
Alright,
Thank you.
Donna.
All in favour?
You can rush that.
Thanks.
Apologies for being late.
Moving on to the minutes of the staffing committee on the 13th of November. Councillor Dixon?
Yeah, I'd like to propose that the council approves the minutes of the staffing committee numbered 23-25-14, 23-25-27.
Thank you. All those in favour of approving those minutes? Thank you. And then Finance and Management Committee again, Councillor Greaves. We need to approve these. Or we suggest we approve it?
Yeah.
Right, okay, all those in favour of approving? Thank you. And then the Planning Committee, again for approval, the Planning Committee meeting on the 4th of December. So,
Yes, could we approve the
minutes from the meeting held on the 4th of December 2023.
All those in favour? Thank you. Thanks. Thank you very much. Speedily done. Right, so at this point I'm going to ask if we can suspend standing orders. Oh, you were just answering the question.
Do what you want there,
Suspend standing orders, bring forward item 106, which is document R, which is the COVID memorial working group, and Jason is going to talk about the update, I think, on the report that he has. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Just pass photos if anyone wants to. These were emailed out earlier today, but if anyone wants to have a look at the photos that Jason is talking to, I'll pass some copies down.
Good evening, councillors, Madam Chair. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you tonight about the COVID project. Just to give you a quick history of why we're doing this. Obviously we knew that COVID happened a couple of years ago, and I'm sure a lot of people here are perhaps on the doorstep celebrating the NHS, but there was a lot of people forgotten, the hidden heroes, the people who help the community. So the idea of this project is to say thank you to these people who helped the community and brought the community together. Nothing like this has ever happened in my lifetime, and I think it should be celebrated that we did something nice. So on the 1st of December, myself, Joe, Mary and Trish Stewart, sorry, I forgot the councillors just at the beginning, but we all met at the tennis club, sorry, the swimming bath at the top there, near the football club at the top, to discuss where we're going to put it in the home turf. And I think we've decided is where the courts are, the tennis club football club thing is, it goes up like that, the hill goes up like that. At the top of there we're going to have some fruit bushes, trees, going down the slope. And at the bottom of the slope, there's like a natural path. We're going to have an oak tree, which will be called the Tree of Life. The cost and implications is not going to be grand. I think Tricia managed to, Joe managed to get some trees donated. The rest of it is going to cost about £10 per bush. And that'll be phase 1. Phase 2 on that, the Kirklees, Andy Wickham, has asked us to do some groundwork to get wild flowers growing again there on that land to make it look a lot nicer and more aesthetic pleasing. So at the moment that's where we're just waiting to confirmation Kirklees to go ahead with that. But as soon as we go ahead with that, we'll get it done as soon as possible, hopefully before Mary finishes in May, we'll be all done with.
Digging it up and going in February.
Yeah. We could be asking volunteers, but we'll work on that. On Friday, just gone now, we met Jenny at the library, Holme library, and if you look at the pictures here, I think most of you have got these pictures here of the Holme library. It was decided, just to give you an idea where it is that when you come to the steps, if you look to your right, there's a grass area there. So that's the pictures here. So the idea is we're going to take these bushes out because we don't want them there anymore. And if you look in the middle, in one of these pictures, you'll see like a ragged bush which is died. That's a natural circle. So what we're thinking of doing is put a path area down to there and create a circle and have some sort of seating area there. So then obviously fruit bushes going all around the edges. This will help the library connect to more people, but also give a lasting memory to all those people who gave time and also unfortunately gave their lives to the COVID. So, and hopefully in 100 years' time when people say, what's this for, we'll have a plaque on the wall explaining what it was all about. And just to remember that the community came together for once. There is a picture going around. We did think about having a wooden bench, circle bench, but after making some inquiries, it was said it's probably not a good idea because they generally are for domestic purposes, not commercial purposes. So it was suggested possibly going for a stone one or a concrete one, something like that. So I had a word with John Ford, who's your local, just to give us some idea, and he said he's just built this one in Barnsley, and he said something like this might be fitting. Now, he's not giving me costs or anything like that. It would have to go to the committee to say, do we want something like this or do we want something else? It's just that his idea was that. Which was, if you look at it, it won't be as big as that. It'd be probably only 2 flags wide, if you've got a picture. So, it might be something different, but it'll be something what we can be permanent and also, as I said, bring the community together. But also, it'll have another future, so at the library where kids can go and sit in the garden and read a book. You've got a place of thought. And, you know, tranquil, like that, which would be really pleasing. So, I've probably missed a lot of things, so if anybody wants to ask any questions, please ask.
I've got a question. Actually, it's a missing idea. Are you ready? So, at the top of Barnsley, there is a stonemason who teaches dry stone walling. He advertises, if you go to Holme roundabout, top of Penston, because if you're going to go to Barnsley, not that anyone goes to the dark side of Barnsley, but if anyone goes to Barnsley, he advertises there. We could ask them if they would run a walling course demonstration there and build the stone bench. You can ask for free, can't you?
Well, that'll be up to the committees, obviously, I can't tell you on that one.
Yes.
There are 2 beautiful nice little lodges in Holme.
One of lives opposite library.
Yeah, that lives up in the library.
That's a good idea, isn't it?
So, but I'm saying, like, at the moment, as the committee are open to ideas, it's just that this was the first meeting, and Jennifer at the library was quite happy to let us go ahead with this, because she thinks it is the future for the library as well, to help increase volume themselves. Is there enough questions?
Any more questions? No. I'd like to thank members of that working group, and I'd also like to thank Councillor Graves for his help in finding a site in Holme, and the library, Holme Library, Friends of Holme Library are very keen for us to do it there, so that it's worked out well. Any more questions? I'd just like to thank Jason for coming and speaking, and for his continued involvement in this. Quite a long time after he ceased to be at the council, so thank you very much, Jason.
Yeah, I'll just say that this project has been going on for nearly 2 years now, and it'd be nice to get it done.
Yes, we're trying very hard to get this done by the end of the planting season, so that it's, you know, it's something that can be signed off, completed. Excellent.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for
Thanks very
listening,
much.
and
Thank you, Chris.
happy Christmas, everybody.
Right, Jason, see you later.
I'll probably see you all next year.
On the library.
See you later.
Jason, I'll drop Christmas present card off at your mother's.
We're going to Mum's on Sunday.
Alright, I
So
think
you have
I'm
to
calling
declare an
off
interest
first.
in that.
Well, I think yours is there anyway. Have you got it?
You what? Yeah, Mum mentioned it. I'll call.
You.
It's because he's not on council.
Thank you very much. I don't know, I can sit still and come and do. I can walk from that to miles.
Right, let us move on to the next. Let's move on to the next item, which is item 92, election of a chair of Finance and Management Committee.
Are you going to
Sorry.
look at the recommendation of the committee? The earmark reserve
What's that?
for 106. There was a recommendation.
Oh, the one at
to
6,
approve.
sorry. Yeah. Right, so with note report, note the report, and then we need to ask you to approve the recommendation for the Climate Action and Communication Engagement Committee from its meeting on the 23rd of October to create an earmarked reserve of up to 6,000 from general reserves for the COVID memorial. Can I ask, are people happy to? We're suspecting that we won't spend anything like that.
I am working very hard to spend 600 quid. Never mind 600.
So can I ask for your approval that the earmarked reserve of 6,000? Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, moving back to the correct order of the agenda. So item 92, election of chair of Finance and Management Committee. I just, at this point, I think everybody is aware that Councillor Greaves has resigned as chair of that committee. And I just want to take the opportunity to thank Councillor Greaves for his chairing of that committee to date. And, you know, in particular, the clarity that Councillor Greaves has brought to much of the discussion in that committee. So it's greatly appreciated.
Charles, can I ask, are you going to continue to be on the committee?
Yeah,
Oh, that's all right then.
Continue to bring your clarity to the meeting. Okay, so, yeah, thank you. Right. So, we need to elect a new committee. A new chair. A new chair. So, do we have any nominations for chair?
Can we re-nominate Charles? Well, I do think that you might have just done it in the heat of the moment.
No.
Right, so Councillor Bailey.
I propose Councillor Holme to continue,
Somebody second that. Okay,
Yeah.
Councillor Whitelaw, second that. Are there further nominations for Chair of Finance and Management?
Can I nominate Glenn Kirk?
So, Glenn's been happy to accept the nomination?
No.
You're not.
No. Thank you.
It's only 3 months. That was clearly a pre-planned technical vote.
So if you're not, you don't wish to accept it, so no, I will not ask for a seconder in that case, so, right, thank you. So are there any further nominations? So we have one nomination, which is Councillor Colling. Can I ask all those in favour of Councillor Colling, please? Thank you. Can you keep your hands up, please?
That's enough.
Right, now as Councillor Colling is currently Vice Chair of the Finance and Management Committee, that therefore leaves a vacancy as the Vice Chair. My suggestion is that we leave that decision as the Vice Chair until the first meeting of Finance and Management. Are people happy with that? Happy with the idea? Okay, thank you. Right. And we then asked to approve the addition of the name of the newly elected chair to the bank mandates. And to note in the minutes the full formal names of all members of the three mandates.
Yes, so what I've got in which you'll speak up on, I'm sure if these are in any way incorrect, is Councillor Pat Colling, Councillor Lawrence Bailey, Councillor Mary Blacker, Councillor Sarah Whitelaw, Councillor Andy Wilson and Councillor Tom Dixon. Those are the way your names are on the mandate. Is that right, Rich? Is that right?
That's the HSBC mandate, yeah.
Rich and I had a discussion earlier on about the CCLA account because at the moment that's got Councillor Blacker on, Councillor Colling as Vice Chair of Council, and then it has the F&M Chair as well. So I think what a third name is needed, and it seems to make sense to Rich and myself for that to be the Vice Chair of F&M in all likelihood. But that can't be decided until after the next F&M meeting. So we'll come back for a third name for that account at the next full council meeting.
And this, to note in the minutes the full formal names, can we do that at the end of the meeting? Thank you. Right, let's move on to financial matters and the schedule of payments, month to date December 2023. Deputy Clerk to report.
Yeah, I mean, there's only really one that you're having to approve, which is, I mean, I did promise Case that there wouldn't be any more payments to the topograph. But I'm almost certain that this is the last payment to do with the fabrication of the topograph. The topograph is never going to go away though, having already paid for the graffiti to be washed off it and various other things, but this is the last payment to do with the fabrication. So I'd like you to approve that, please.
Are we happy to approve that? Which was explained, thank you very much. Right, so, moving on to the council budget 2023-24, there's a whole list of requirements to be approved. So I think I'm going to invite Rich to, they just draw people's attention to the law. There's a long narrative on the next page, just to draw people's attention to that.
Yeah, as you said, there's a long narrative, there's lots of things that are dependent on other things, and there's sort of cumulative effects of things, so it's quite a challenging thing, I would imagine, for councillors to read. I've tried to make it as easy as possible, but I do appreciate it's quite difficult. So the first bit is about environments. So this was essentially when the Finance Committee was reviewing its grants in the last cycle of grant applications, a lot of them were referred to the Climate Action Communications and Engagement Committee, where the applications had some sort of relevance to the climate emergency. So it's mainly things to do with heating, insulation, biodiversity, that sort of stuff. So they, when it came to case, they basically are recommending to council these environments that are listed here. I don't think there's an awful lot of point going through them because it's quite hard to explain, and it's I don't think it will take ages to do. So the bottom line is that moving things from the various budget lines to the F&M 4315 community assets pot and the 4405 projects and events pot, they would have, the 4315 pot would have £45,779.40 remaining to spend, and the projects and events pot would have £4,285.34 to spend in its next cycle. So I would like you to approve those environments, please. Only council can approve environments between budget lines.
I mean, it is complicated, but many councillors have been involved in the discussion around these environments. So I mean, none of this should really come as much of a surprise anyway. So we are asking for approval for the environments which are listed there on page 4. All those in favour of accepting environments? Thank you. Okay. Yeah, we have to move, as Rich has implied. We have to move step by step, carefully through all of these proposals. Right. Do you wish to speak again?
Yeah.
The next part of the great.
So this next bit is more to do with the actual budget, and it was trying to find a way of increasing our money in our general reserves by our approach to spending this year. And what I suggested to finance was that because of these environments you've just agreed, there's quite a lot of money in the climate in the finance and management community assets pot, nearly £46,000, which, given that the entire budget is only 53,000, it means that there was quite a lot to still play with. And what I suggested to them was that it might be sensible for next year's budget if the roof here was funded from the community assets pot. As you'll know, the estimate on the roof was £22,490 before tax. And I just felt that by sort of ring fencing that in that budget, it would mean that we've got more money to play with for next year. It still left 23,000 for the finance committee. So I thought it was a sensible suggestion, and that was what finance recommended to full council. So I would like you to consider that recommendation.
Does anybody wish to speak on it before we put it to the vote? No? Right. So can we agree an expenditure of up to 22,490 from the budget line 4315 community assets to be spent on roof repairs to the civic? All those in favour of that? Thank you. Okay. Right, so that's B, don't we?
Yeah,
We move on to C.
And then again, with relevance to next year's budget, it seems sensible to consider moving the 35,000 in the earmark reserve for children's playgrounds into the general reserve. It gives us more money to play with in terms of the budget. Basically, you know, it would take £3.50 off any increase in the household charge. So it's quite a big chunk. So that's a recommendation from council to move £35,000 from the 338 earmark reserve children's playgrounds into general reserves.
Right. Any comments or questions? All those in?
I'm in favour, no, I'm in favour.
You're in favour, sorry.
Yeah, it's all right.
Did
I just
also-
think we haven't spent the money, have we? And we just, and it's down to Kirk Cleves, it's Don's job to spend, not our money on stuff like that, it's not ours.
Can we, is that all those in favour of that? Yeah, that proposal, thank you.
Well done,
So
Don.
that means we've dealt with that, we've now dealt with C. So, having approved, A, B and C, we are now in a position where we can move on to consideration of the council's budget as recommended by the Finance and Management Committee. So I think I'm going to let Rich speak for a while. I'm anxious
to go before Rich.
Go before Rich,
Yeah.
fine. Okay, so this time, we don't want to rush, this is an important discussion, we don't need to rush this discussion. So at the end, when we've heard more facts and have perhaps had some discussion, we will then put three proposals to the vote, and the one that gets the most votes will be the one that we will adopt. So, you've all had the papers. I know it's not easy. it's not really easy to find your way through them. But there is but document K2, I think, is which compares the three proposals is very useful, I feel. So evidently, Councillor Collins is going to speak first, and then, so this isn't to propose anything, this is just to speak about it.
I've been recommending,
Yeah.
so.
Fine, and then, Rich, are you wish to
I certainly can do, yeah.
further, okay, so Councillor Collins?
What Rich and I agree with, that I would talk about the whys and he would talk about the hows. And F&M had a lengthy discussion, well not lengthy, a very unanimous discussion about the whole setting of and for the purposes of clarity, I'm going to refer to, I'm not going to use the word precept. The precept is the term we apply to the money we get from Kirklees. I'm going to use the phrase household charge for what we charge the citizens of the valley. And we've had 4, if not 5 years of the luxury of having reserves that we've been able to spend on the valley and its well-being and our assets and grants and all of those sorts of things. Those surplus reserves have now been used up. We had to use them, they had to be reduced, so they've been reduced. And when we looked at all the numbers, it was clear that we couldn't continue to provide what we had this year and for the last 3 or 4 years on the budget that was available to us. Therefore, with fairly heavy hearts, we unanimously, except for one person, so both parties and independents agreed to go with the option called K1 that would mean an additional £4.40 per band B household.
Or it's perhaps budget option A, as it's described in document K2.
And that was almost unanimously agreed, as I say, with one vote against. However, we've had new information since then, and there's 11,000 more lurking around. But F&M have not been able, and there is a budget K2 which incorporates that 11,000. F&M
Or option B.
F&M have not been able to meet to discuss this. So I can't, as chair of F&M, put it forward as a recommendation of F&M for the full council. But what I can do is that as an individual, I can put forward K2 instead of K1. And then I guess that's about all I want to say, because I can't speak for F&M. I'm assuming the people who were in that meeting will be pleased, because it means we're charging more than £1 less. So it's good news. But we haven't met and discussed it, so strictly speaking, we can't recommend it. So as an individual, I'm recommending that second budget. Rich will answer questions about the how, but that's the basic principle.
Thank you, Councillor Holme. Any comments? Councillor Parish, are you wishing to speak to your proposal after Rich has spoken?
Yeah, yes, please, yeah.
Thank you.
Come on, Rich, tell us how it works.
How does it work? Well, our internal auditor last year, she wanted us to have in the past, what we've done has been, it's not been a methodical approach to budget setting. What she wanted is inputting figures and getting an output figure at the end of it. And this is what I've tried to do with these spreadsheets, is that it's an actual calculation of either actual figures or projected figures. The trouble with projected figures, as you're aware, is that things change all the time, like this 11,000 appeared. What else changed? The insurance on the topograph appeared, various things. So things change all the time, but we're at the point now where we just have to draw a line in the sand and just go with, you know, whatever's approved tonight. That's what we go with. In terms of the F&M proposal, what they've proposed is all the budgets that were recommended by the committees and the earmarked reserves recommended by the committee. So the budget basically fulfills all the requests of the committees. In terms of how the figures are worked out, so that means that so there's £109,669 of earmarked reserves, of which, if we take in the 11,000 underspent on youth provision, we would have £74,492 of general reserves, which, does it say how much that is? I think that's about 16%. As you're aware, we need to have about 25% of general reserves against our expenditure. So basically we have to top up that level of general reserve by about £20,000 from the precept, unfortunately, which is where part of the increase goes. So as you see at the bottom, so the current precept is £284,924, and the band D charge is £27.18. The £27.18, as Councillor Collins says, has been there since 2018, I think. So in terms of band B, the band D charge will be £30.53, which is an increase of £3.35 and a percentage increase of 12%, which, as you'll have read, I think inflation is, was it 20-something% over the last 5 years? 21% up over the last 5 years. So it's still under that. I appreciate that nobody wants to be pulling up charges, but we do have to realise that a lot of our budgets are inflation related. Our staffing costs, things like the toilet bills, the benches were inflation related. Our expenditure on office stuff, we had to put that up last year. So inflation has been in our calculations, whether they've been part of an official calculation or not, they are there. So that was the Finance and Management Committee's point of view on it.
Thank you. I think Councillor Wise wished to.
I've got a question. My house is in Bandy. I'd argue with Kirklees it shouldn't be, but whatever. I'm working on it as a savings scheme. So, it's 177 quid a month, my council tax. So if it's going to go up £3.35 just for Parish, Kirklees are going to absolutely rob me away another 5%. Police and Fire Brigade are skint and all, so they'll want a 5% increase. So you're going to be talking like nearly £200 a month council tax. Is there any way that we can reduce spending? I don't mean wages, I mean like grants and frivolous-ish things.
Of course, yeah.
I'm just saying that it's hard enough in Holme Valley. Like my bins don't even get emptied every week, they get emptied every fortnight to top lane. They don't even clean the drains, they've got them on the street lights, they don't have a bus service. You know, there's some people in Valley who begrudge paying it and then not getting anything in return. It's different if you live in Holme or in Holme and you're on a main run or whatever, but some of us aren't, and the bus services aren't brilliant there. I just feel like it's just an extra 5-10 quid that it's a lot of money, you know what I mean?
No, that's per
No,
year.
sorry, can I just point out
It
that
is
the
£3 a year.
increase is just for
I know, but
year.
you're putting it
It's
up.
it's not a month, it's
But
not for a month.
Kirklees will be putting it up across the whole year, won't they?
Right, I think we'll, thanks, Joe. We'll move on, and had you concluded what you wished to say? Clark, right, so we have just to draw people's attention to I think which is the clearest presentation of the three budgets, which are A, B and C. A is the one that was agreed by Finance and Management. B is the one that is based on that, but it's been amended because of things that have happened since. And then C is a proposal from Councillor Greaves. So, Councillor Greaves, like to talk about your proposal. Thank you.
Thanks. So, whilst it's not a requirement, it's common practice for finance and management to put forward options to full council. This year was only the one, within the committee there was quite an extended discussion around what the budget would be, but we didn't really get into exploring putting together alternative proposals. So I've made this one following that meeting. I guess fundamentally my concerns are that for the last few years we've been running a planned deficit budget. And we're now entering a phase where we need to make that transition over to a balanced budget. And I feel that this year is a year where really we just need to restrain spending and just, if you like, just gather stock as to where future budgets are going to be. There's quite a movement around in committees and in terms of the new priorities of the council going forward. And so, if you like, the key bit of my proposal is to keep that council tax rise down. So, with my proposal, it would be a 5% rise. I appreciate inflation has been pretty significant in recent years, but our cost profiles don't match the general rate of inflation. Some have gone up, some haven't. A lot of our expenditure hasn't really gone up by that extent. So I'm not overly taken with the inflation argument. What I'm more taken with is having a structured, coherent and balanced budget. So the main areas that I've trimmed back in my proposal. So this is taking account of the fact that the land charity will be looking to distribute some of its funds, but it also is looking at the fact that we're going to have some funding heads for Civic and Holme Library as well. So the main bit of the reduction in terms of the budget is to reduce the F&N grants by 15,000, and that's quite a modest reduction, I think, especially when you look at the alternative sources of funding. The main thrust, though, is to draw back on the earmarked reserves. So I do think there's perhaps some misunderstanding around what the purpose of earmarked reserves are. So they're earmarked with the intention of spending. They're not security reserve as such. That's the purpose of general reserves. And we've had earmarked reserves that have sat around for quite a period of time, and that's not right. That doesn't meet with the, if you like, the rules or expectations that sit around earmarked reserves. It should be earmarked for a purpose. So we've carried forward some of these earmarked reserves for a period of time. That in itself isn't wrong, but it does. It should only be carried forward with the intention of being applied. And my worry is, if you look at our main budget and then add on the earmarked reserves, when we get to 25, we're going to have built up a cost profile that's going to be very difficult to sustain. And in that period, we're also going to see further pressure on the general reserves. So what I'd look to do is to disestablish quite a number of those earmarked reserves. So let me give you an example about the consequences of one, because it was raised as an example, but the implications were, in my opinion, misstated. So by disestablishing the defibrillator earmarked reserves, that does not put anybody's life at jeopardy. The defibs will remain in situ, and if there's servicing required, that will continue either from the main budget or from general reserve. So disestablishing the earmarked reserve for defibrillators has no direct implications in terms of their deployment. One of the earmarked reserves that we do have that in my opinion needs to be beefed up, and I would perhaps move the unspent youth provision money towards that, is the election reserve. So we have significant spend on elections. We have potential for some by-elections to come up, and then we'll have the all-out in 27. So the cost of running those elections over the last 4 years has been, I don't know if Rich has got it on hand, but are we talking about 35,000, something like that, for the last 4 years on elections?
This year it was 28,000.
And we've had some by-elections in between, have we not?
Yeah.
So at the moment, we're going to have an earmarked reserve of £7 grand, and the current budget proposals have no provision to increase that. That's right.
No, but I mean, as we've always done, it was always topped up 7, 7, 7, 7 every year until the next.
But there's nothing in this year, is there?
There's 7,000 in the earmarked reserve.
In earmarked reserves, yeah.
Yeah.
So the issue I have with that perhaps is that we're going to have to find a fair bit of money to refill the earmarked reserves budget whilst we're spending other earmarked reserves, whilst we're still pursuing or pushing ahead, if you like, with not just the existing budget, but with some of those priorities that have been identified. So I guess to summarise the two, I would just say that I would just like to restrain spending for this year, just so we can see where things are actually going to finish up. We're still looking at a 5% increase, I think, and there was no real desire to have a significant jig around of the budget. I think 5% is easily justifiable from the increased expenditure we're going to have on youth provision. But it's really about leaving the reserves in a good position rather than using those as supplemental spending. Once it's spent, it's gone. And over the last 4 years, it was planned to be run down. But we need to make that transition at some point, and I would say to make it now, whilst there's still a decent amount of money in reserves, that if we do have in-year pressures, we can easily accommodate them. So examples of the in-year pressures that we've had have been the work on the Civic, which has realistically had to be done, but was not budgeted for. And if we have similar calls, the further we run down our reserves, the harder it will be to meet those calls. So that's it. I would say in a nutshell, but not really. But I just wanted to make sure that the committee, sorry, that the council had more than one option for it to be looking at. So that's fine.
Thank you, Councillor Bruce. Well, quite a few people wanting to speak, so I think Councillor Rice, Councillor Wilson, Councillor Bailey.
So these earmark reserves for the defibrillators, if you use a defibrillator, right, then the ambulance service refreshes it and changes all the bits. So there would be no need for that anymore, so you could whizzer that away. And then like, why can't we do, listening to everybody's point, why can't we do Councillor Collins's increase, which is reduced from what it was originally because she's found 11 grand under bed, take Councillor Charles Greaves' some of his earmark reserves that we don't need anymore. Why ain't someone else paying for their own dog poo bags? Why are we paying for it? Why? And then put some of that back in, and we'll have extra money and reduce the frivolous spending.
Right, thank you, Councillor Wilson, and then Councillor Bailey.
Yeah, I think probably most of them like the precept not to be run for total. I think that'd be my starting point. But I think you've got to consider what the impact of that is. What does it actually mean if you say we're only going to have 5% or whatever the figure we choose? And I think when you look at Councillor Greaves' proposal, I mean, firstly, the community assets grant is taking quite a hit. Some of us might think that's a good idea, or might not, but nevertheless, that's a significant chunk coming from there. And the EMRs, the 7 EMRs that have been reduced to 0. Now, okay, some of them might be fairly minor things like defibrillators, but we've got the climate emergency projects. We've certainly got mine with the road safety. We've got public transport. Now, as far as I know, there hasn't been any discussion around these as to whether we can actually cut them. And certainly for the ones that I'm dealing with, I'd rather they weren't cut. I think there's a good reason that they're there. And I think the other thing is the general reserves. Under Councillor Greaves' proposal, they go up to 34%. Now we've been asked to keep them at 25. So why would we put them up to 34? I think, all things considered, I would prefer the recommendation that came from F&M with the 11k that was found.
A little bit bad.
Yeah.
My own.
Put a milk next door, so you don't go shopping.
I think it gives us the best outcome with what is really a fairly modest increase. Not modest in percentage terms maybe, but when you look at the actual cash, it's a cup of coffee a year. That's what we're talking about.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Bailey?
Yeah, I'd like to speak against Councillor Greaves' proposal. I think mostly speak against it. There's a couple of things in there that perhaps would be helpful. I mean, the point, I don't really know about the point about the election funds and building that up and so on. It could well be, you'd have to take the RFO's advice on that. And the defibrillators could well be that, that we could disestablish that, but we're only talking about £2 grand a year. £2 grand as an EMR that keeps getting carried on, so it wouldn't make a huge amount of difference. But I don't agree with the point about that these EMRs have been sat around for ages. you know, and not been used. That may have been true in the past, but every one of these, as I understand it, certainly the ones that our committee, Service Commission, be involved with, have been looked at afresh and have been proposed with a rationale for that EMR. So it may have been true in the past, it's not now.
Thank you. Are there any more comments before we... Right, Councillor Bellamy, Councillor Myler.
Right. I've just been looking at precepts for other councils.
No, house charges.
Oh, sorry, I'm sure it's precept,
No,
not how
it's
much.
not, because that is one.
Oh, right. And whatever we put it up by, I must admit, will not be the same as Melton.
Tell them.
Nowhere near.
They've already paid enough. Thanks.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I wouldn't want nothing to go, and I'll declare here, I don't pay it anyway, because I don't actually live in the parish, so I don't actually have to pay it. But to be honest, I mean, I would prefer to look at nothing.
Don't get on Bailey's buses if you don't pay precept.
Take that mince pie back.
Chocolates, I
Bailey's bus service.
I am a bit with Joe on this. I do think there can be stuff cut. I mean, dog
Oh my
waste bags, I think, are an absolute, to be honest, waste of time. Why are we providing
God. Not at Aid Edge.
Well, yeah, but
It's
why-
not the man that
So
goes
we're
and-
blaming engine on fences.
Yeah, why are we
Not
providing
trees.
waste bags? So if you're a dog owner, you clean up after your own dog and you take your own bags.
See,
And it really
How
irritates
somebody
me.
charge you 50 quid if you don't have a two bag on?
Exactly.
You should be having a dog warden.
So I do think that there should be some cuts, and I know that we can cut back on, and I know not so long since, I think it was actually, it was in another meeting, Tom mentioned Civic Hall and how it was hoping at one stage that the land charity would be able to give some money to the Civic Hall, but it was said that a charity can't give to a charity. I've done some
Well.
research, yes you can.
Oh yeah, eco-homes.
They can. They can. So we should
Not
probably
if
be
they're in it.
we should probably be convincing the Civic Hall to apply for money from land charity. I just wanted to get that in because I think when we were told that in the first place, it was it was actually two certain people. One worked for the council and one didn't, and it was more something underhand going on. But never mind. So yeah. So I can see all points on this, but like I said, preferably I'd rather it not go at all.
Thank you, Councillor Bellamy. Right, it's Councillor Myler, then Councillor Kirby, and then Councillor Holmes. Thank you.
I would say I think inflation is very important. If inflation continues to have an effect on the costs that the parish council pays, and so if we don't take that into account and we don't make any increase at all, then that means that services will decrease, and that's happened in many cases. I mean, not just in the parish council, you can see that. I think it's really important to invest in the Holme Valley, and invested in the Holme Valley can mean that you can get more people coming into the Holme Valley. You've got a better environment for people who live in the Holme Valley. I think just trying to keep things as they are, I don't think is the way forward. So things like trying to improve transport, local transports, tourism, to get more people to come into the Holme Valley and spend money and do business, etc. Money for the civic and for the library. Costs are going to go up with inflation. Also road safety, to make it a better environment for, well, not just young people, but in particular young people. And these increases are very modest. And there's actually not that much between the three of them. So, apart from the dog race, I'm not sure about the dog race. But the others, yeah, I think we should be growing to an extent, rather than just effectively going backwards if
Councillor Ryan. Councillor Kirkby?
Can I just ask, and it may be my misunderstanding, so apologies if I misunderstood what was said earlier, but does the movement of the 35,000 from the EMR for Children's Playground to general reserves have an impact on these figures?
Yeah. I mean, when the calculation was started at F&M, if all the budgets and earmark reserves had gone through as they were presented, with doing none of these kind of corrective things that we've done, it would have been about £10. It would have been an increase of £10. By doing those two things that this council's already approved, i.e. the roof and the 35,000, that brought it down to £4.40, and then obviously the 11,000 that we're not spending on Kirklees Youth Alliance, that takes about another £1 off, £1.05 in fact.
So that 35,000 was taken into account in these calculations, even though at that point we hadn't approved it.
Yeah, that's essentially about £3.50 off the charge, something like that, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Holmes?
Well, firstly, making comparisons with other councils as to how much our precept is. The average annually is £74.81, and ours at 27, whatever it is a very good value, and you want it to be value for money, you want people to get, but I think that is incredibly good value for money if you think what this parish council actually provides to the community.
Oh, amazing.
It's wonderful. So to actually want to reduce that, which is what effectively you would be doing, if you kept it at zero and you made no increase, you're effectively reducing what the parish council can actually do. Yeah. And I agree with Jane that we want to do some positive things. There's no point in us existing if we're not going to actually do something useful. So I definitely sort of think that the in-between one, you know, increasing it by £3.35 a year is a very modest increase and allows us to do some of the things that as a council we want to achieve.
Thank you, Councillor Holmes. So, Councillor Greaves and then Councillor Dixon.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. I'm at, in my proposal, it's a 5% increase in the budget. It's not no increase. So I'm not sure whether that's not been understood. But, and it covers, my budget proposal covers all of the cost increases that the F&M budget proposal covers, with the exception of the capital grants for finance and management and those earmarked reserves. I just want to be really clear on that, because quite a few of the comments that are being made aren't accurate in relation to what the alternative options are.
What's the 5% in monetary terms?
Well, there's a point of clarification when members get something significantly incorrect, it's important for the person who's advocating something to make sure that misunderstanding is corrected. Okay, so you're right. But if there's more incorrect statements, I will be asking the chair for that opportunity to clarify again. Thank you.
Right, I think we probably get to the point where we're almost going to draw this discussion to a close and do some voting, but before that, Councillor Dixon's going to speak. Can I just check, is there anybody else who would really burning desire to speak before we move to a vote? Councillor Dixon, thank you.
Yeah. 12.5%. That's the increase, isn't it? It does sound a lot. £3.35. It's a lot compared to what it's been in recent years. When I've been on the parish council, we've done 3% increases, 4% increases. Not normally very much, but we haven't done anything for 5 years. So when I look at it like that, if you split 12 divided by 5, it's about 2.5% a year, or 60p a year for a bandy, which doesn't sound too much. It's a better way of selling it to the residents. We say we haven't raised it for 5 years and we're having to do it now. And I understand why, because of interest rates, which Jane and Jenny have mentioned. There's only so long you can swallow up the interest rates, and if you do that, if we keep on, if we didn't have any increase at all, we'd be giving less service to the public. If you think about grants that we give out to people for like the Christmas lights and events like that, £1,000 is what we normally give out, but £1,000 is about 800 quid now from what it would have been 3 or 4 years ago. So the way that interest rates have gone up. So the public when we give grants, they're expecting more money. They'll be asking us for more money. They need more money for projects and various things. Wages have gone up, everything else. And I don't like seeing a 12.5% increase. It does sound a lot, but when you drill into the figures and you look at the recent years, it isn't that bad. So you know, that's kind of where I look at it.
Let's move forward.
Thank you, Councillor Dixon. Right. Okay, so we had three, at the beginning of the discussion, we had three options, which again I'll say are clearly laid out on document K2. The first one was the original budget from Finance and Management. That's A. B is the original budget amended as a result of what's happened since then. And then C is the option being put forward by Councillor Greaves. Now, you've heard why the original proposal from F&M has been amended. I'm going to assume that that B has, in a sense, overwritten A, so we are actually faced with a choice of two options. Are people happy with that? So that we're discounting A because of what's happened since. So the two, so we're left with two options, B and C. So I'm going to ask now for proposers and seconders for those in order. So I'll go first of all with B. Can somebody propose B? Thank you. And seconder, obviously got a seconder as well. Okay. Do you need names, Jen, please? No. Thank you. Could I have a proposer for option C, please? Thank you. And a seconder for option C. There's a second for option C. Thank you. So we have two proposals on the table. So we'll just take this as a straight vote. Are people happy with that? So the one that gets the majority, I suppose we'll do if we get a time, but we'll see. So we have a time. I'm ready for that responsibility. Right. So first of all those in favour of what is now option B, which is the amended version of the original proposal from Finance and Management. All those in favour of that, please.
Jenny's money under bed.
I think we probably just need to be a counted vote. Yeah.
16. Do you make it, Jenna?
I've got all but two.
Three.
I'll say that quite an independent.
Okay. Have we got it? 16. Right. All those in favour of option C, Councillor Greaves' proposal. Thank you. Thanks. I think we're very clearly option B is the one that we will proceed with. Thank you all for that. Not the easiest of discussions with you guys, but thank you for your contribution.
And thank you, Rich.
Oh, and a huge thank you to Rich.
All the work that went in before F&M and everything else as well.
Well, the thing about that was a little irritating. If Jen hadn't hassled them about it, they wouldn't have given us that.
What was that?
I said if Jen hadn't hassled them for that 11,000 quid, we wouldn't have got it back.
Jen wants it for a pay rise, that's what she said. We should do a commission.
Yes.
Just to point out language, really, in the discussion we just had, we jumped between actual amounts of money and percentages. 12% can sound enormous.
Yes.
But when we're out of this room, I think we should refer to it being £3.35.
Yeah.
Again. Yeah, which is a tiny-
Oh, but Martin, if someone offered me 12% pay rise and only went out at £3.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, so let's move on to item 96, which is the letter from the internal audit about the rising fees. We're asked just to all have it, we just have to note this. Can we just note it, please? Nothing we do about it? Fine, thank you. And then moving on to matters reserved for full council. So revisiting the somewhat vexed issue of declarations of interest and the referral to the police monitoring officer. So the clerk is going to speak to this.
Thank you, Chair. So I just want to highlight some points from the report that was enclosed with this. Obviously, I've included some narrative in the agenda regarding this as well. And just to say that I liaised with the monitoring officer regarding this report in as much as I shared a draft with her and then I tweaked it in line with her suggestions. Okay, so I just want to be absolutely clear about that in terms of transparency and openness. That you know that it's had an input from the monitoring officer as well, and I'd like to just go on the record for thanking her for the time she spent discussing these issues with me. So one of the things I want to draw your attention to is I know it refers in my report to councillors may seek advice from the clerk, and it's probably worth just thinking and maybe having a bit of a discussion around, well, what does that mean? What is the role of your officers in terms of looking at code of conduct and looking at declaration of interest and so forth with you all as councillors? And one of the things I do want to say is the kind of advice we can give as clerks is we can point you to the relevant sections of the code of conduct. We can point you to where relevant legislation is. But what we can't do is give an interpretation, give our own interpretation to you. That there isn't any sort of room for that in our role. So essentially, what this then comes down to is the interpretation of individual councillors and the fact that it does need each and every one of you to reflect and act upon the provisions of the code. And really, beyond the onus being on each individual, it will be the council or a specific committee that then interprets the nature of any disclosed non-pecuniary interest. But what we haven't got a role in doing is probing interests which have not been disclosed, because that's got to be for you as individual councillors. You know, the onus is absolutely on you, and we can't. I mean, you can come to us for advice and we can say, well, this is what it says in the code, but what we can't do is say, this is what you need to declare. Or, you know, if you ask us for an opinion about an interest, it's not for us to give that opinion. So it's a strange one. This, you know, you may come to the clerk team for advice, absolutely. You know, do come to us for advice. But what we can't do is give you an interpretation. So I did want to go through that before we sort of go any further, really. I've included in the report this reflections section. I had quite a long debate with the monitoring officer as to whether it needed to go in. This is the only part of the report where, if you like, what I've shared with you is my view. Okay, in that reflection section. So my view is, Clark, is that, you know, we've got to address these issues, you've got to address these issues, but actually what I think all of you are trying to do is work your way towards having that culture where you can be open with each other and where these issues can be addressed as they arise, including in meetings, so that it becomes less of an issue that you need to sort of bring things to mine or Rich's or Gemma's attention outside of meetings, because actually it's all there in the meeting for people to discuss, and it's all a matter of public record, if that makes sense. So I did decide to include that reflection section, and I hope it's helpful to you. But you can ignore it if you wish to, you know, there's no doubt about it. You can ignore that, but please don't ignore the first recommendation. And that's where the bit that the monitoring officer has asked that the council resolves to secure whole council training regarding the declaration of interest in code of conduct. Because one of the things that came out of the discussion I had with the monitoring officer is that sort of desire that all of you in your role as councillors hear the same training, you know, in get that all together rather than separately, because I think that would be a really helpful way of moving on. The second recommendation is very much subsidiary to number one. It may well be that you don't feel that you want to resolve on that, and I'm aware that in lots of ways this kind of induction you might have done with me, or that people have done with me, you may feel has been superseded because you've been in lots of meetings now and you know how things are done, and that's absolutely fine. I included it for you to consider, but you know, it may be that's one that you don't want to go along with, but do go along with number one. And I have got some possible dates. If you did want to have extra induction sessions, I can suggest Monday the 15th of January, 4:30 till 6:30. So I've slotted that in before the planning committee meeting, or Tuesday the 16th of January, 2 to 4 p.m. So I can be available either of those times in order to do induction with anyone who's not had the opportunity to do that yet. And just to say, I've learned a lot since, not just being in post since 2021, but in the lifetime of this new council, you know, and I think all three of us as clerks would say, we're learning things alongside you. So, you know, in part of this is just about a new team forming, isn't it? That's my personal view, which you are very welcome to ignore, but I just think that's normal in new teams.
Thank you, Clark. I'd like to thank Jen for the amount of effort that she's put into this. I think as councillors, I think we are all in a way troubled or concerned about the declarations of interest in one way or another, and you know, striving to get it right. So I think Jen's contributions are really helpful in that matter. We'll continue to strive and struggle, I'm sure, because yes, sometimes the declaration of interest is absolutely obvious, but obviously at the margins, as always, you know, there are decisions to be made. So thank you very much, Jen, for that. So there are, first of all, we're being asked to note. Yes.
So, is it appropriate for us to give an opinion about the recommendations at this stage?
If people want to speak, that's fine. Yes.
Okay, I will do.
Yep.
I think there's something very positive to be said about having a collective training, because it in my opinion, my experience, that means that you are undertaking an engagement with ideas at the same time as other people, and you're not doing it in isolation, and you have the opportunity to share ideas and to respond to what it is that is being proposed. And to do that individually is completely different from doing it collectively. And I think that we as a council, we have a collective responsibility to try and make sure that we do the best that we possibly can in relation to our code of conduct. So I would heartily support that proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Whitelaw. Does anybody else, before we move to what we're asked to do at the bottom of the narrative, has anybody else anything they wish to say? We're first of all asked to note that in the narrative there's information about the progress, I suppose, of alleged referrals to the monitoring officers. Can we just note the progress in the matter of those 8? Just show hands, we just thank you, so we note that. And then moving on to consider a recommendation that we secure a whole council training on the declaration of interests and the code of conduct. Are people happy to do that? And just to add to that, that you would delegate the organising of that to the clerk. Yeah, people happy with that? Yeah. It'll be some time, presumably, before it can be organised.
Yes, yeah, I would almost, unless unless you direct me otherwise, I would certainly want to ask YLCA to be involved in putting together and delivering that training. So it will, when it happens, will partly depend on their availability. But I mean, it seems most sensible to try to include it as part of a full council meeting.
Right. Okay, people happy with that? I keep seeing your antlers. Right. And then we're also asked to consider a recommendation that all councillors not intended induction training do attend induction training before the next full council meeting. Do people wish to vote on that recommendation, that those who have not attended? Or are we just going to leave that one? So all those in favour, all those in favour of a recommendation that all councillors who have not attended induction attend it before the full council meeting. So I'm not sure about the count. I think that's the majority.
Yes, can I just ask a question? I haven't done the induction for Parish, but I've done more inductions. And I've done the inductions for Parish previously. So please, can I be excused?
It's only a recommendation.
It's just a recommendation. It is not saying that you've got to do it.
I think if you give me any more inductions, I'm going to explode.
I'm doing one tomorrow at work if I'm going to Sheffield.
No, you're alright.
Yeah, councillor.
Am I allowed to ask a question? So Donna, are you saying that you've done parish council induction previously?
Yeah, about 8 years ago.
I would respectfully suggest that 8 years ago is quite a long time, and that perhaps keeping up to date with I'm just talking to Donna at the moment. I would respectfully suggest that current practice is what we're about here. So it's quite important that we're all on the same page. It's the same argument, really.
I only did Kirklees's again.
Yeah, but that's different. Kirklees is not the parish council.
Yes, I'm going to stop this dialogue at this point. Can we move on to the next item, which is the Holme Valley Parish Council Statement of Intent of priorities. So this is document N, and I'm reporting on behalf of the group. So the group members who may wish to say something shortly. Group members were Councillors Lyles, Collin and Bailey, along with me. So this is a replacement for a longer document, which is currently on the council's website, which was adopted in not that long ago, in 2021, and produced by Council then Rachel Hoggett. We've kept this document deliberately short, and so what we're taking account of the priorities identified by all the committees. So this is a top level document, and the priorities identified by all the committees should sit well within it. I mean, one of the things that was missing from the original version was the strength of which, or the insufficient emphasis really on the climate emergency. So we've tried to address that in our new version here. So I don't know if any of the other group members would wish to comment on it or anybody wishes to comment.
Just a brief comment. I think what we wanted to produce was a document that you could use when decisions are made in committees and think, are we fulfilling these yes we are, as opposed to pages and pages and pages of good intentions.
Thank you.
Mary's worked really hard, like writing it, changing it, writing it, and I've seen all her emails and read them and thought, you have worked really hard, so well done. It is hard though, isn't it?
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Judith. Right, yes, Councillor Prince, yeah.
I just want to say, I think it's a really clear clarification of what we're wanting to do, so I really appreciate you writing it down so concisely.
I have to say in my defence really, it wasn't all me that, yes, and the final version more or less was written by Councillor Colin. Both Councillor Bay and I produced slightly longer, more discursive versions, so we decided so we went with brevity on the bullet points of the of this one. So thank you. So we've been asked to approve this statement for the Holme Parish Council. I just want to slightly amend the wording there from the agenda, so it just be for the life of the council, this council. So these are the priorities identified for this council for the remainder of its 4 years. So all those in favour of accepting it? Thank you. Right. Moving on, item 99, officer of clerk, councillor protocol. This, yeah, I think I'm going to report again. This was another small working group, and members were Councillor Tom Dixon and Councillor Pat Coyne, as well as me. This was a job really of tidying up an existing document which is on the Parish Council website at the moment, which had been adopted wholesale from it is in effect the Kirklees version of the Officer Council Protocol, and included an awful lot of stuff towards the end which had absolutely no relevance to the Parish Council. It was clearly meant for a district council, so all we did really was strip away all the stuff that was not relevant, and there's a small revised version at the end which is pertinent to this council. So we just asking, and then yes, there was a lot of relevant material. It dated from 2017 as well. So I'm just asking, unless any two of the members of the group wish to comment, we'll just move. I'll just move to ask if you would approve it. Do you want to? Either you want to say anything? No. Okay, thank you. Right. So can I ask that you approve the Officer Council protocol as presented? All those in favour? Thank you. Mr. Keynes, right. So we move on to the civility and respect project, and do you wish to speak to this?
Just to say that we received the certificate confirming the taking of the pledge. This is a certificate which is ready for you to sign as Chair, Mary. Does that sound right?
Make sure you get capital letters and full stops.
It's certificate number 1409, so we are 1409 council
So it's not just something that we ran a photocopy. It is a proper certificate.
With your John Bull printing.
Yes. Right. Thank you. Oh, so item 100, which must be significant. No, that's what we've just done. Item 101, council training update, and Jenny's clerk is going to report.
Yeah, so this was deferred from the meeting on Monday the 9th of October due to earlier items overrunning. So there were several documents that have been attached for you to peruse beforehand. They included an update of training undertaken by councillors, and also the blank performer of the training reports, and then completed training reports from Councillor Bailin and Councillor James. So, and then finally, there is the Yorkshire Local Councils Association's training programme, January 2024 to March 2024. And as always, if you're interested in any of these trainings, please do let me know. I've got an email that I need to answer from Councillor Green about the nimble training as well. So yeah, just let me know and I book you on. Most of it is via Zoom, so you know it's quite effective training.
Councillor Bain?
Yeah, can I just make a comment, because my report is, my feedback reports in here from the Talking Tables training, and I have to say, I just want to commend this really to others, because I went on it. I'm not a great one for doing online training, even though I have delivered online as well, but I'm really not, so involved to engage with that sort of stuff. And I was quite cynical about this particular full-day training, and my mind was changed completely on it. I really enjoyed it. I got a great deal from it. It is full day. It does get you to meet lots of other people from loads of other councils. It helped me to put our council in better perspective against other councils in many ways, and I learned a lot from it. So, I mean, that particular one was at Weatherby. The next one is somewhere else. I can't remember. I think for maybe 6 months or so. But I would recommend it.
Thank you. So, any more comments? No? Right. Moving on, item 102, which is the protocol for dealing with residents' queries, which was deferred from the full council meeting on the 9th of October.
Yes, just to say, so I'm looking to bring a protocol to the meeting on Monday the 29th of January, and therefore I'm inviting councillors and officers, any views or ideas you've got on this matter, if you want to share them with me, it would be gratefully received.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
When I used to have to deal with people's questions, I used to get like, can you tell me where this ambulance number is, and have you got this model ambulance, and has this ambulance moved to this station by ambulance watchers? What sort of questions do you get, Jen? Out of curiosity.
Usually, can you do something to get my bin emptied? That's the most common one.
Welcome to mine and Charles's inbox.
That's probably the most common thing.
Right,
People.
there's lots of bench questions. Benches and bins.
So get that, and then I suppose one of the main interfaces is lately has been over memorial plaques for benches. That's something, where it's often people who've had a recent bereavement, so they come in you do everything you can to help with that basically. So that's a sort of common kind of interaction in where you're sort of dealing with queries.
We had the scooter club asking if we could suggest somewhere for them to park near in the central town. The scooter club.
Did you recommend the Connor House Camp?
I think I told them to contact the cricket club. I think.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea, isn't it? I've just put a memorial bench on my footpath. I bought it this week, and I bought a reclaimed one from a man in on Little Church Street.
Stolen from
refurbished it. Yeah, there's no crest on the side. Checked. Yeah. And I wanted a plaque on that for £6 or something ridiculous this morning. I'm going to put that on my own land on a footpath, so for big steep hills.
I mean, people may have noticed that Jen was running Spot the Bench, or identify where the bench is.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much the benches mean to people.
It is, and I think that's sort of, it's basically just to keep the algorithms up so that we've got constant content coming out, but actually the engagement's quite nice with it, and people don't, it also helps us remind people their hours and if there's a
The other one was at
problem,
Holme, this week's was at Holme, wasn't it? Yeah, it was very good. There'll be a new
Look
one
out
this
this
Friday.
Right, let's move on. We're doing really well actually. Considering the amount of business we have to do, I think we're doing pretty well. We might finish on time. So we'll move to item 103, which is Holmford Civic Hall valuation request from insurers, and it's again draft 2 reports.
Yes, the valuation took place on Thursday, and we are now awaiting the report from Bolton's. So that's now happened and is in hand, and I'm sure we'll be reporting more on it at the next meeting.
We note that, we just wrote that, thank you. Right. Item 104, report on rights relating to civic. The working group consisting of the clerk, councillors Wilson and Ransby, and councillor Bailey. So who is it? A member of the working group or the clerk who's reporting? It's the clerk, thank you.
Yeah, and just to say that Councillor Greaves was also invited to join following discussion with Clark regarding the report, the confidential report on the civic that you received for the last meeting. So the working group has met to discuss that confidential report and mapped a way forward around the following aims. 1, to establish clarity regarding rights of way around the civic. 2, to protect access rights for the fire escape if that becomes necessary to do so. And then 3, and underpinning everything really, is maintaining good relations with our neighbours. So the next steps for the working party will include the drafting of a letter that will go to all neighbours, which will share information from the confidential report that you've all seen. 2, there'll be face-to-face meetings with the neighbours in the new year. And 3, the 2 fire exits will become emergency break glass exits only. And also the civic will be revising its communication with hirers regarding the use of those 2 fire exits. So in terms of actions and recommendations arising for full council to consider, what the working group would like is for full council to confirm that the working group has delegated power to move this project forward along the lines just reported and take appropriate actions, and for that to be reported to the next full council meeting in January.
Would you like to just repeat that?
That's right.
Everybody knows what we voted
Just the
on.
last bit.
To consider confirming that the working group has delegated power to move this project forward and take appropriate actions and report back to the next full council meeting in January.
Can I ask a question? Just a question.
We'll all forget what we've done. So be quick.
It's a legal question. Have you taken legal advice on the communication, like contents of the, like when you're writing your letter to communicate to the neighbours in a goodwill gesture, obviously, to inform them what's going on? Have you taken some legal advice about implementing yourself or incurring costs, or do you know what I mean? Because the report was quite damning, really, wasn't it? So all I'm saying is you don't want to enter into something in the letter that you're then going to regret later. So maybe just ask somebody to just overlook the letter before you send it. That's all I'm saying.
So we went through the report paragraph by paragraph, and I had a series of questions and proposals really for the working group to consider as to whether we should be seeking further specialist advice and so forth. So we did look, took a bit of a fine-tooth comb really to that report. It'll be me that's writing the letter. The draft will be shared with the whole working group. The letter will basically draw out the information which, you know, we should be sharing with the neighbours over rights of way. We did discuss whether it should be a letter that was drawn up by our legal advisors and so forth, and we you know, the feeling of the working group was not to incur any extra costs that didn't need to be incurred.
I appreciate that, but I'm just thinking, if a solicitor can cast their eye over it, just to check before you send it, I just...
Can I comment on this? Because I think I responded to it when Jen made that query. That's not really something that a solicitor's going to do. They're not going to look at Jen's letter and say whether they would be okay with it. What he's normally be looking to do would be to write the letter yourself. There'll be a whole load of caveats that a solicitor's wanting to put in there. So the benefit of asking a solicitor to check Jen's work is just not there. If they responded, they're going to respond to say something on the lines of, thanks for giving me the opportunity to look over your letter. If you want to ensure that this meets proper legal standards, I'll write it for you. Here's a bill for £150.
So this is under offer.
So then when you go back to the solicitor writing the letter, well, then you're going to go back into the couch terms that the report was written in. So there's a danger there, perhaps, that what isn't again, so some of the language is used has been used carefully, and there's a danger that might be misinterpreted as being ambiguous when it absolutely isn't. So as long as Jen doesn't overstep it, so Jen's not giving an interpretation in law, she's setting out the position of the parish council on it. If the residents want an opinion in law, they'll need to go and get one. So it's not, Jen's not refereeing this as such, you know, but so she shouldn't be making any particular legal assertions, but there are assertions, she won't be making any legal confirmations, but she's making assertions on behalf of the parish council in terms of its ownership of the building, just like anybody else would do.
Thank you. Right, so can ask the councillors please to approve the work of the working party up to date and their plans for the future. Thank you. So, approved. Moving on to 105, which is reports from Kirklees Ward councillors again. I'll invite the clerk to comment if there's...
Yes, I think this came out of a case meeting, which was a suggestion to add a standing item on full council agendas for Kirklees councillors who are also parish councillors who will report back on any relevant activity and news from Kirklees. And I have also been in communication with other Kirklees Ward councillors who are not also parish councillors, but I've got no matters they wish to correspond with the parish council about. So.
Right, thank you. Okay, so no action there. Moving on, item 106, which was the COVID Memorial Working Party. We've dealt with that one already. So we move on to 107 under referrals from standing committees. The first one is a change in the scheme of delegation from the Finance and Management Committee. Does anybody wish to speak to this from the Finance and Management Committee? Or chair or new chair or old chair?
I'll just say, well, this is something that came from Service Provision Committee to F&M. It seems a more logical thing to happen. It doesn't fit ideally within what Service Provision Committee are doing and does fit better under F&M.
So you have the full text there. So you've been asking to approve change the scheme of delegation for next year, transferring oversight of rolling grants, which is a new phenomenon, for the Holme Valley Patient Transport and Holme Business Association to the Finance and Management Committee. So those in favour of approving that? Okay, thank you. Planning Committee, no referrals. Service Provision Committee, the youth work budget. Right. clerk to report further.
So this is simply noting what has previously been reported as part of the budget consideration in the earlier agenda item. So the £11,000 is no longer required, and that's because the majority of the money is to support the appointment and payment for a youth worker. The recruitment process for that youth worker concludes this month, so a significant chunk of that budget is not required as expected, because the wages will only start presumably in the new year if they are successful in appointing.
Thank you. Can we just note that? We've obviously taken into account in previous items, so it's very well noted, I think.
Can I just say, sorry, it's not on that item, but it is under service provision 15. So if you wouldn't mind, just about the Christmas trees matter, can I just briefly say, just to show that I'm not obsessed just with buses and food bins, I'm going to talk about Christmas trees. We are planning to review, as I think most people know, the Christmas tree provision for next year. Not looking necessarily at a cut in budget, but just a better use of the budget across more of the villages. And all I'm asking just at this point is to say, whilst the trees are up, if you would, if people could look at the trees in their particular ward, if you want any information about what we're providing, not providing, etc., I'm sure that the clerk can provide that. But we really would welcome opinions about what's being provided and so on. And if you want to go and have a chat with whoever's involved with that locally, whether it's the local pub or a committee, local community group or something like that, please do that. It just seems a perfect opportunity at this moment to be doing that whilst the trees are actually up in the midst and so on.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Sorry, we should have picked that up under the minutes. Right, moving on to Climate Action Communication Engagement Committee referrals. The 80th anniversary of D-Day, of which I would be glad of interest, obviously. Like to report further?
So it's decision time really, and the case committee kindly resolved to defer this to full council to involve all of you. Included in the pack was a letter from Pageant Master Bruno Peak, and just to say that Cliffrec and Holme have been used in similar events previously, so it's time for Holme Valley Parish Council to consider whether it wants any involvement in the D-Day 80th anniversaries, and if so, what form are they going to take, and is that going to involve beacon lighting events?
Any comments? Right, yeah, Councillor Bailey.
Can I ask a question? I know there is a beacon. Yeah. Do we know what it is?
Yes, it's here.
It's here, because we were just wondering if it was still in a certain cellar. Because that's the one that usually goes to Home Moss.
It's definitely here.
I was going to ask him, but just in case he weren't.
Usually it's here at the office.
I was say, I bet beacons here, I bet gas bottle in it.
I think the one Councillor Bellamy's talking about, I think that's gone. I think that's gone, hasn't it? You're talking about a newer one, aren't you?
Yeah, so Rick's basically bought the beacon that was used in the Jubilee celebrations and then gave it to the parish council, and that's the one that's currently
We've lost the other one.
You lost the other one, didn't you? Yeah.
Not personally, no.
No, but the other one did.
I don't know where it is.
So if there's two beacons, we need two beacon lighting. Go on.
Right, Councillor Green.
The official letter is saying there should be 14 within the county. So even if we talk about West Yorkshire, having two in Holme Valley is disproportionate. I think we need to decide. I'm quite happy on one, but which one would be what I suggest the question is.
Can you speak, Councillor Dixon?
I'm not going to vote, but
Can
I'll
we
let you
allow
declare
Councillor
an
Dixon
interest.
to speak, please? Having declared an interest.
Yeah, I'm not going to vote on the matter, but I was just going to say that the Friends of Cliffrec have done the beacon lighting events before, and it's easier for people to get to up there. There's more space for people, and it's not like Holme Moss is right up top of a big hill. So, if Friends of Cliff Rack are planning on doing one, it might be an idea for the parish to work with the Friends on doing that. And then it would, like I said, it would only be one beacon lighting, and it would probably reduce costings down.
Thank you. Councillor Fenwick.
I think Holme Moss is a better place. It's higher up, there's plenty of parking. There's World War II aircraft up there that crashed here. So it's more of a memorial and more fitting for them people that gave their life for us.
Councillor Green.
Yeah, well, I guess my two benefits is probably who's going to be able to do it and who's going to be able to do it simple and straightforward. I think Friends of Cliff have done it in the past, but Holme Moss is a more iconic location. But is there somebody to do it at Holme Moss? If not,
Well, I want to do it at Holme Moss.
I think there's a bit involved with doing it, but you know.
Well, put me in for then, Charles.
I've done it before at Holme Moss.
Councillor Ryder.
Right. Just, can I ask how much these cost? Is it expensive to have two?
It's about 1,000, I think.
What about
Just a donation, I guess.
I'll donate it.
Bet you got one.
I can get a donation.
Very intermediate.
You can defer it. In terms of cost, I'm assuming one cost would be the gas bottles, because you would have to get the gas. The beacon is in the cellar. There are no gas bottles in the cellar for obvious reasons. So that would be a cost.
could solve a problem or
Like
two.
Just to say that there will be people who've had more experience than me with this. Rick's completely managed
Not me.
the not Rick, Rick's the Institute of Chartered Surveyors completely managed the Holme Moss Jubilee lighting event, and I don't think they're involved at all this time. They completely managed that.
Right, Councillor Ryder.
Forgive me if I wasn't paying attention, but I don't think we've actually made a decision that we actually want to do this, have we?
No,
And shouldn't we?
we could start with that. We could start with that proposal. Yes, Councillor Wilson and then
Both for me.
Ross.
I think they offer different things. You've got Cliff that offers somewhere that's relatively easy to get to for people living in Holmfirth and around surrounding area. But Holme Moss is more iconic. It's on the highest ground in the area.
You'll probably do it at Castle Hill and you can see them both.
But I mean, until we get some costs, it's a bit difficult to say, isn't it?
Sorry.
Of costs.
But we haven't decided that we actually want to do this.
I'm saying yes, both.
Right, I think, well, Councillor Green, which is speak, and then Councillor Lyons, and then we'll work out how.
We'll just adopt the aims for the council that bring the climate emergency decision into everything that the council does. So to burn twice as much gas as we need to do is a contradictory to that. But that's the point I want to know.
Councillor Lyons?
Well, I'm going to say something similar.
Sure, gas.
Right, well, maybe it's a point of information that the Friends of Cliff Rack will be going ahead anyway. The band is booked, so that one will happen. And we certainly won't be looking to the Parish Council to fund the whole of it. So maybe we need to, maybe the question to put to council now is do council wish to have its own event up on Holme Moss? It's kind of be clear what the voting for. Who wishes for council to have its own event up on Holme Moss? Okay, those against? Okay, abstentions?
You're abstaining because you can't vote.
Oh, I can't vote. Abstentions, well, I'm abstaining anyway, but, right, so is that carried, is that, we agree, go ahead. I think perhaps we could defer any more detail until the next council meeting. Do you think?
Well, when we know what's involved,
When we know
what the costs are, we can.
Okay, so defer any further detail until the next council meeting and investigate costs.
And organisational stuff, if we require it.
I think there's very few people who can go apparently, so it's not a massive thing. Okay, thank you, right. Let's move on to item 110, staff costs, earmarked reserves. Jenny's going to report again, thank you.
Yeah, I wasn't sure whether this will have been dealt with under the budget agenda item earlier. The disassembling of the earmark reserve of 5,500 to meet staff pay awards with any residual monies being taken into general reserves. Have we already done that, Rich?
Not, well, in terms of the time, no, I'd rather you did it now.
Right. Okay.
I propose we disassemble the earmarked reserves in order to meet staff pay awards.
All those in favour? Item 111, officer employment contract special dues. The final time, I think, ask the clerk to report further on this.
So all the details of this are in the narrative in the agenda, and really it's just about being on the front foot. So the staffing committee, after the last meeting, I've shared the model NALC contract in YLCA, sought their advice as well. There is nothing in that model contract that refers to compassionate emergency family leave, either paid or unpaid. And really, it's this that we're looking to bring into all three officer contracts, so that provision is there. Just to say, in terms of sort of taking precautions and so forth, it would be, it would depend on approval from the chair of council and the clerk in terms of any leave for the deputy and assistant clerk under this criteria, and from the chair of council and the chair of staffing for any leave for the clerk that came under this criteria.
Can I propose this? Because it's just like I just think it's a given. Like, what sort of like working person don't have that in the contract? It's a bit rude, isn't it?
Surprising it's not in there, is it?
Yeah, it's disgusting.
Thank you, Jen. Right, can I ask for approval of the council for these amendments? Thank you, that's unanimous. Thank you. Correspondence, at last. Item 112, the Holme blueprint has been adopted. We just asked to note this. Can we note that it's been adopted? It's there available. Yeah. Yeah. So it's just coming up to 9 o'clock, so we'll be done in a couple of minutes, I think. But can I just ask that we suspend standing orders so we can finish the business? Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Right. Chair's report. This won't be long. Okay. So I've only three items really. So. Sunday 15th of October I went to the civic service for Murfield Town Council, which was in the community of the Resurrection, which was an incredible building to be in. Yes, you can see it from the train. Yes, you can see it from the train. On Sunday the 12th of November, along with several of the councillors already been mentioned, I went to Remembrance Day service at Holme Parish Church. and read a lesson for the second time, and then walked along to the Holme Memorial Hospital to relay the same route. Saturday 9th of December, a glorious event really in Huddersfield Town Hall at the invitation of the Holme Male Voice Choir's Christmas concert. So that's it. Thank you. I guess no actions arising from the chair's report. Thank you. Move on to final item, items for publicity. Has anybody anything they wish to? Yes.
Just to let everybody know that we've currently got sort of items out for the awards, which I know you've all seen. Just a quick reminder that the deadline for any nominations is the 8th of January. We've also doing a bit of a push on grants, and the deadline for those is the 31st of January. We should have a youth worker in place by January, so I will be running stories around that. I've recently run stories around sort of all of the Christmas activity and some of the grants from this year, and I'll be highlighting a few over the next 12 months as well, just to keep that level up. We've got a flyer that is being worked on by a small working group from the case committee, so that is going. But if anybody's got anything else they want to throw my way, please do. Always looking for content.
Jim, could I just ask that, obviously you're doing Where's That Bench competition at the moment on Facebook.
I am doing the Where's That Bench.
I suggest we have a festive Where's That Christmas tree version.
Yeah, I can pull the sweets and move it to the next
one. We'll give up a little bit, I guess. We were all playing Where Are Those Christmas Trees for the last fortnight.
Yeah.
Oh, where are the lights?
So thank you.
Has anybody got a picture of a current Christmas tree that they can send me?
Yes, I've got 8 edges because it's got solar lights on it.
Yeah, but it's not, well, you can, yeah. It's not
I
Parish
was allowed to
Council
say
one.
hey Dave.
It's not Parish Council one, but there's no reason why it couldn't run it.
No, I think they got it for free up to 30.
They did, yeah.
They want to be trying to tap him up for 20 next year.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Gemma. Tireless work trying to influence that. Thank you everybody for your attendance and